Happy Friday, hooligans! This is Jay Hooligan here from Hyde Hooligan Films, and coming at you with something new for this week. All right, moving into the weekend. Hopefully, you guys are taking some time off from this massively nuts and crazy week that we've had, from everything that's going on. Unplug and be able to work on yourself a little bit. I like to adhere to the 47 rule, which is not 47, but 40-7 rule, which means for every 40 hours of work, you take 7 hours for yourself. Now, what you do at that time is completely up to you. I like to take my time to meditate and work on myself or learn a new skill to build from that. So, something that maybe you want to think about, which I do constantly, is working about improving myself in communication, right? Because everything that a lot of people get messed up on or get kind of caught up in is clarity in message. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for that saying, listen twice as much as you speak, because it takes extra effort on, even for my part, along with a lot of other people's, to really listen to understand versus listening to respond. Now, when people listen to respond, that's usually comes from an emotional standpoint. So learning to listen to understand, again, goes right back to clarity and message. As such, there are two different types of definitions out there for practically every word in language, and that is your denotative meaning and your connotative meaning. So let's dive right into that, because that right there is one of the huge misconceptions when we're talking about clarity and message. All right, so denotation is, according to Merriam-Webster, an act or process of denoting, which I always hate when they use the word itself inside there as its first meaning, especially a direct specific meaning as distinct or as different from an implied or associated idea. Great way for me to remember it, which I've used for a long time, is denotative usually means description. Or definition. The definition of the word is what a denotation is. So if anybody ever argues about what it is you're trying to say, you can always go back to the denotative meaning and really understand, like, this is the definition of the word, and you're not trying to add any other associated or implied explanations to it, which moves right into what a connotative description is. So connotation, something suggested by a word or thing, or an implication, something you are implying. The suggesting of a meaning by a word apart, so separate from the thing it explicitly names or describes. Okay, so what that means is any associated feelings or history or things like that are actually part of the connotative meaning of words, which help comprise our language. So why is this important? Again, why people get mixed up between so many different meanings of, oh, no, this is what I meant to say. You know, might be that they're trying to say allude to the connotative meaning versus the denotative meaning, while other people who are listening want to take the denotative meaning instead of the connotative meaning. You see where it's kind of getting a little mixed up there? So, as an example, I have here the word hustle. All right, hustle has very different meanings. One of them, which is here the denotative meaning, which has a bunch of descriptions on here, as a transitive verb, to crowd or push roughly, to convey forcibly or hurriedly, to urge forward precipitately, to obtain by energetic activity, usually used with up, so hustle up. And here's the main one where a lot of people sometimes feel that the term hustle is bad: to sell something or to obtain something from someone by energetic and especially underhanded activity, or to swindle people. Now, that's where the difference is. Like I said, a lot of people don't take the word hustle to mean to swindle somebody, but actually to convey, like, oh, I'm hustling, I'm making money, I'm surviving, I'm doing things for myself, so then I'm just to survive so I can make it and not be put out on the street. Okay, that is a connotative association that comes with the word hustle, right? That is completely separate than the denotative meaning from that. That's why you get websites like Urban Dictionary. UrbanDictionary.com says this is what it means out on the street, right? That's the whole idea for this is what people mean from that. However, when we want to talk about forming arguments and opinions and things like that, especially when it comes to clarity of message, a lot of times people will argue purely from the connotative meaning and then get this whole mix-up. Just take the whole defund the police movement that happened during the summer. A lot of people took that as, why would you want to completely cut and defund them? Because by definition, defund meant to sever all money from that. Now, a lot of people did mean that. They really wanted zero funding for that. But a lot of people that support it didn't actually mean it, but still used the tagline because it sounded better than reform the police. And that's what they were actually calling for, was a reform of police policy and policies that we have out there. But again, because of the tagline and how it was associated with it, the associations with it is what caused a ton of confusion, a ton of arguments, and there was no clarity of message for people to understand what they're trying to mean. So again, if you are going to take this time this weekend, maybe consider possibly learning a little bit more about yourself to be the best version of yourself. Understand the differences of, hey, maybe where you may have been talking about a connotative association versus a denotative one and how you can better that. Because I don't know where people lost learning the art of language and clarity so we can communicate. The whole purpose of language is for us to communicate with each other and better understand each other. But when it becomes convoluted with so many different variations of it, that's when everybody loses from it, because confusion starts to set in with people saying different things here and there. No, I meant this. No, you know what I'm saying. I've heard of all these things. Like that's, it happens all the time in arguments because there's no clarity in message. Now, this is completely aside from the fact of using fallacious style arguments where you're typically using, say, red herring or a straw man fallacy in your ways of arguing, which again typically come from a logical standpoint still, but doesn't necessarily get the point across in a purely logical or even equal or fair manner. And there's a lot of that going on because why? Everybody's run through emotional reactionary responses at the moment. And again, if you've watched any of my other videos for that, emotion and reactionary responses don't necessarily mean that they are rational or that they make sense. It is purely meant to incite that because it's an either or. And therefore, if you disagree with me in any sort of way, emotionally, it will take it as you are an enemy or somebody else is an enemy attacking you, which is generally not the case, especially if they're not using any horrible name calling or labeling for that. Okay, so hopefully that was informative for you guys, and I hope that every single one of you has a great and fantastic weekend. Take that time for yourself, unplug. Okay, unplug, take at least the 7 hours, learn a new skill, enhance a new skill, better yourself, meditate, do whatever you need to take that time for you and move back to some place of center. And then we'll move on to next week. Hopefully some newer stuff will come about that's good news, or at least collectively as a way for where we can talk to each other again. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you guys next week.